All right, so we have this indicator here is a 2 MA moving average, just basically a moving average, right? A 50 moving average with some other things added to it. Technically, on this day, you wouldn't want to be taking a trade because your bias changed on that blue line, so no trade. But let's say if your bias changed earlier, this would be a possible trade to the upside, right? So on this day, what I'm waiting for is I want my 2 EMA magic, that's this moving average, 2 MA magic, you see that I want it to be bearish and I want price to close above it, then I'll take my trade. Again, remember, this is just because I want it to be pictorial. For those of you who know simple price action, you can use LSB, you can use whatever. If you know how to use TDI, you can put your shark fin, anything you want to do, right? One is more than one way to enter the market. So price broke above. Once price broke above, I have my entry right about there. That my stop loss will be my RCE level on my fib will be at the recent low, which is here, right? So you entered at that point, price came, played, and shot up, hit your TP3. If you traded, if you are still holding the trade in the next day, you go to as high as TP6 or thereabout. Right? You are done for that particular day. The next day, there's an entry here, but let's not explain that. Let's just explain this particular entry we are taking. So the next day again, remember, it has to be under the value line. Under the value line, right? That's the value line there. Price has to come under the value line, give you a discount under the value line. That is, in a way, as if you are deceiving people that want to go more or less like HPLR. So here again, that's the value line there. Price came underneath, it closed above. You would have entered, you are giving your TP1, never really hit TP2 and then pull back. So if you trail your stop by 1R, it will hit you at break even. And then out. If you didn't, sorry, it has stop loss. It's part of those things that happen. Again, on this day, below the true day, that's the line, it went above. Again, I'm entering. Remember, you can use any method. This is just pictorial, so that your laptop is on, you just come and look at it and take a walk. That's the entry there, and then price pushed up to the upside. By the way, I know Prof will show some images. Let me quickly show. Skin for 7th, you can clearly see my entry there, right? And then price continue to push to the upside. This is the trade that was taken on the 8th, which is exactly here. This is 8. So that was the trade. As at the time I took the short, price was still dancing around TP2, almost hitting TP3, which was somewhere around here. And then price did all of that. Again, that is done. On this particular day, price below the value line broke above. You initiated a trade somewhere here. Again, remember, you can't. I don't use 5 minutes on every pair. There's a reason why I'm using 5 minutes on AUD, USD, and AUD CAD. My data supported it, right? My data supported it. I won't use 5 minutes on GBP, USD. So you need to understand that we don't just, there's no blanket rule, right? So here again, this is one. This is another entry here. Should you have missed the first one, that's another entry at that point. So for that case, you have your entry somewhere around there, and then you have a wider stop loss. Whatever the case, whatever the case, that was another winning trade. And again, I have to show this so that some people don't think that we only show after the event. So this again under the price came below the true day, which is our blue line. My 2 EMA showed me that we had a seek for liquidity, right? Even those of you who use fractal, you get a C liquidity at this point. You get a C liquidity at that point. Price came and then it head up to our TP2, even up to TP4, right? So on this day, price came below, but we didn't get a bearish 2 EMA. So we are not bothered. By the time price started doing all of that, it was already above the 2 EMA magic. So I'm not interested, right? What about this day? Price came below again and gave me another entry, right? So I'm practically just coming to check. And that went all the way to TP4. And then did some massive pullback. On the 15th, which was basically yesterday, we had some entries, but we had some trades. We didn't have any entry following our rules, right? The entry would have been somewhere around here, following our rules for a discount, right? And price just hit TP1 and came back and took us out at break even, and then we'll be out of that trade. So that's how it played out for AUD card. Let's look at AUD USD. Again, it's a short-term thing. I've shown you guys what the long one looked like. It was also profitable week. So in this case, we were bullish from that. So we'll be coming to basically the same day second. And if we go to M5 again, 2nd of June, right? We basically didn't have any trade setup on the 2nd of June, but we did have a trade setup here, right? So our first trade would have been here, and that would have hit our stop loss, no doubt. Sorry about that. Then the next trade would have been here, and that would have gone our way, right? And if you held on to that trade, just like you did for AUD card, you would have gotten out at, let's say, TP6 after hitting TP7. Then we have this trade again, which went to TP2. AUD card didn't touch TP2. ADS touched TP2 before pulling to the downside. And then we have this entry here. We basically have this entry at that point, pulling to the upside. Sorry, my mouse is acting up, not giving me full control. Guess I have to buy another one. All right, so that's that, and that again played out. And also on this day, again, that's the through day, the DBL line. You can see that their price came underneath it. My lower time frame trend was bearish. So people who trade lower time frame were thinking they were going to sell. I got a break above, I enter, simple. This is not a trade setup based on our strategy. You could backtest something else and have an entry, but this is our trade setup, and it practically just went our way. We also had another entry here for AUD/USD on the 12th, and that went, so you'd have harvested like 2 hours or thereabout. No trade entry on this day. That was day for today. We did have a trade entry on the 14th, right? So again, did it close above? Yes, it did, right about here. And that took us all the way to TP4. Of course, I expect that you should have taken out your profits before the news, but if you didn't, well, it will take you out at TP3 or even TP2 because there would be the widening of spread, right? So on this day, you could argue that this is an entry. You could argue that this is an entry for which you would have been stopped out, and then you would have had another entry again, you are still within your kill zone. And that would have that would have hit you maybe like a TP something. Then here, not really good an entry. Here, not really good an entry. But even if you enter and take a loss, no problem. Remember, for this, we explained that depending on your risk model, risk management model, what you want to do is that if I take a trade and then I lose, my next trade is going to be lower. I expect it to be lower. If I lose, my next trade, I expect it to be lower, right? I'm buying. So if this was wrong, I shouldn't come and be buying above again. Lower and lower. At maximum 3 times. Depending on your risk management. If it's twice a day, and then you take a walk. So that's just a recap of one of the strategies we discussed during the strategy splash. Our taking time earlier, it's not in the recording, so let me state that again, that we have a long-term trade strategy, which we also discussed in the, sorry, let me take out all of this. Which we discussed when we're having a strategy review. And we said, we have an indicator that helps us look at the long-term and short-term trend, and then try to tell us when to begin to anticipate sales. So let's take this sell, for instance. Now, it would have given us an alert at that point to begin to anticipate sell. It would have given us another alert, and then another alert, and then another alert. It should have given us an alert here, but as at that point in time, this was already bullish, so you might have forgotten about that. Then we had an opportunity to begin to look for a buy. We wouldn't have gone too far, but then we have a buy. So someone like Daniel usually would look for the fractals, and then up to now, we had another buy, and then would have been buying up until that time, right? So Prof, I'll give room for Prof to explain the trades we're taking for the week, and then let's see how that goes. Then after that, we'll give room for perhaps questions if you want to understand that. So we're planning, I think Prof should have worked on that or should be wrapping up on that. We're planning, we have like some persons within the Heroes group who are profitable. In fact, one of them told us he's presently trading, is he a $300,000 account? I'm not too sure.
500.
Right, so 500. Right. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to the voice you'll be hearing. So let's get some of these sweet sonorous voices to come talk. I'll be in the background. Prof might also be in the background. So we'll have some other people share the ideas of their strategy, which are basically modifications or total breakaway from what we teach. There's no holy grail anywhere, right? So we'll have them take us for like 2 months or thereabout. Each person will have like a week, 3 days in a week to talk about their strategy. And if there's a trade setup brewing, at the time they are teaching us, we will all take the trades together. Of course, first you do that on a demo account. Never ever take a Lambo size because your mentor says that. Our best loss I ever had in my trading career was when I took a trade setup from one of my very first mentors. My very first mentor traded CSA 5 steps, which is currency strength. And the guy takes trades and gets out after 21 pips. So he does a grid trading of 7 by 3, which is 21 pips. And every time we're in a Zoom, you always say TP hits, and people be saying, yes, we cash out, we will cash. Yeah, I was not cashing out. What was happening? So one day I funded an account, and he said we should, I can't remember, it was NU. I can't remember if it was a buy or sell, but I remember vividly it was NZD USD. And we took that trade. When we took that trade, the trade went south. They had stop losses. He hit their stop loss, but I was refusing to. My own boss. Number one, I took a very big loss. How can my own mentor trade stop loss? I held on to that trade. I couldn't sleep for 2 nights. And upon all the sleeplessness, I still lost the money. Double holla, right? It immediately hit my stop loss. The next day went up. But I've lost the money. And that was also never take any, if they give us trade setups, let's not take it in a hurry on our live account. Understand what is happening. Prof, are you ready to roll?
Yes.
All right. I'll stop sharing from here.
Okay. All right. So let me share screen. All right. So I think you should be able to see my screen. So basically, I'm going to run us through some of the weekly trades that we took, and then some of the intraday trades as well. So this is default. Let me go to analysis. So if you're like me, that you don't want to employ so many devices, what you can do is to use profiles. You can go and learn that on YouTube, how to create profiles or the MT4, so that you only have what you need on your screen per time. So for those of us who were around for the lesson we had on order flow, one of the pairs we traded this week was EG. So EG is bearish. The market flow or the order flow is bearish on the weekly, was bearish on the daily, and then it turned, we took the fractal high. So this was basically EG. All right. So once price ran above that fractal high, we'll have come to 1 hour EG, and that was our setup right there. So this was that fractal high from Monday. So this is 9th, Friday, 12th, Monday, Tuesday. So this was what I call a very, very sweet setup. So for those of you who were around then, I remember I mentioned the fact that when you have a break of the 1 hour fractal, that is your clearest indication that, okay, they're going to give you at least 1 hour, most likely. It is very rare that you have this. All right, so we are looking to sell, they take out previous this high, take out the fractal high, and then give us this close below the highest bullish candle. And then price still goes down to go and break if each one fractal. And that is a very, very sweet sign that, see, we are really moving. And so would have taken our fib tool, would have marked this up like this. Right. And so they just came, picked you up, and straight to TP. This was a very, very sweet setup. Remember, I shared this in the Heroes platform. So just picked you up, ran down, sweet setup. And so after sharing it, Bishop pointed out that a similar scenario occurred on EuroCard. So if we look at, okay, EuroCard is not listed here, but we can do that manually. So if we go to the daily, just a moment. All right, so we could see as of when this gave us the setup, the other flow has changed now. But as of when we got the setup, this was the last fractal high. All right, we had broken this fractal low, so we are basically bearish. So price came up to this point, would have come to H4, EuroCard. Right, so this was the fractal within the week. So once they went above that fractal, we are looking for opportunities to sell. So we would have gone to H1 on EuroCard. And this was basically what played out. So Monday gave us a fractal on the 12th. We went above, price closed below this highest bullish candle, right? Would have taken our 52 and would have drawn this like this. All right, so again, price picks you up and immediately drops to TP3, which is usually, at least for me, that's where I get out. So I have one TP at TP1, I have another one at TP3, and I'm basically going that. I personally don't trade EG, of course. Within the week as well, we had some intraday trades. So on EU, let me start from the dollar. So I mentioned, for those of you who were not aware, if we are on the daily, the dollar changed last week. We broke this fractal to the downside. And in the Heroes group, I mentioned that if this closes as it is, we are going to see a break of structure. And of course, we'll be expecting that price would then drop. And every push to the upside is an opportunity to sell. So we didn't really get any weekly, at least the way I look at it, we didn't get a weekly setup on the USD this week. All right, because basically I don't trade on Mondays. So even though this fractal was created and I'm then taken out, I was actually expecting that on Tuesday they will run up a little bit again to take this out and then give me an opportunity to sell. That did not happen. So once the H4 now aligns, all right, now aligns with what daily is doing. So your daily bias is bearish. Once your H4 becomes bearish as well, right, it closes below the fractal. Once it becomes bearish as well, you begin to look for opportunities to sell. So this broke below, all right, at this point, it broke below. You could see this as a break below. If you were not too sure, you could have skipped the 14th, which was Wednesday. I also did not trade on Wednesday because if you look at futures, the way I normally trade, if they take out the previous day's low when I'm looking to sell, I just forget about selling that day because one of my targets should be the previous day's low. So if they've already gone there, I assume they might be gearing up for a reversal. But then on Thursday, we are still bearish on H4. They begin to push up and we go to H1. All right, we could see this. And so price closed below this highest bullish candle, would have stepped into EU, of course, and we are looking for opportunities to buy, right? So this was the first one they gave us. And this was the only one I took because the other second entry was higher. So this was the first close. They closed above this bearish candle, right? That is looking very small now because of the massive move we saw yesterday. But what you would have done is you would have fibbed your candle just like this. Let me try and expand that a little bit more. So you have taken it. This is the candle we are talking about. This candle closed above it. So you would have drawn this up to this. So price came, picked you up, played with your emotions, and then boom. So once this broke this fractal level on H1, I basically mentioned the Heroes platform that I was hoping that when the interest rate decision will happen, they will just spike into my TP. And that was basically what they did. If you missed this setup for any reason, they came back again, give you a second setup. So you could see this. right, closed above this bearish candle. You would have marked this up like this. All right, so just before the interest rate decision, the drought picked you up and boom, all targets in the bag. So with just this, e.g. 2%, ECAD 2%, EU, this again 2%, you could be up 6% this week because I don't trade ECAD. Basically, the EU setup and the EG setup for me took me up 4% this week. I'm not going to talk about this particular strategy. Those are in the current first stream class. And then in the Heroes platform, we are going to discuss this later. Of course, I mentioned it yesterday that if we have a bust, we get a bust, I'll start looking for opportunities to go short on EU or to go long on the dollar pairs. So basically this line here gives me to see a yellow or a golden line somewhere here, not the other lines now. There's a golden line here that basically tells me, all right, you could see it again on the USD. So if I put my cursor over it, you see ATR marks out. So it's basically the weekly ATR. Once the weekly ATR has been reached for the week, Thursday, Fridays, we can start begin to look for opportunities to go the opposite direction. It's basically still dancing around with me. But on dollar, we've broken the H1 fractal, so I'm just going to allow the trade to run into next week. It should be fine, even though they are still playing around. So those were some of the weekly trades you could have taken. We could look at all the JPYs were basically just running from the trades of last week. If you were around in Chef JPY last week, the trade basically began here. Still the same idea. All right, so your weekly trades. So you had this fractal was created, price came, took it out. If you go to your H4, you will see that very clearly on Chef GPY. All right, so you had this, price took it out, so still dropping. So previous day, you could have taken a buy here. Right, and you would have marked this up like this. So the way I trade, once I set my limits and I'm not picked up that day, I basically just delete the order. All right, and wait for whatever they want to do the following day. So on this day, I won't have been picked up. We come to the following day, we get this entry. Right, and so price drops immediately, picks you up, gives you your TP1, and then runs up to give you your final TP. Throughout this week on this particular using this particular strategy, we didn't even get an opportunity to enter again. So sometimes when you are trading these setups, you have to make sure that you are there to really take your setups, because sometimes they will not give you the opportunity to step back in again. So we can look at some other things that some people are looking at. We look at gold. So gold is still bearish on the daily, but even though I don't trade gold, I am still a bit wary about trading, about going short on gold, or I will be wary if I was trading it about going short on gold, given the fact that the dollar has turned bullish. But the way you would have played this was simply to come here on H4. All right. So you had this. This was the first fractal they gave you. Then they took it out. You'd have been looking for opportunities to call short. So if we go to H1 on gold. All right, so this was basically that fractal, took it out. You're looking for a close below the highest bullish candle, which is this. You get that, you mark up like this. They pick you up, gave you TP1, came very close to your final TP, and then pushed back up. And now you're just basically slightly in profit on this. So it's that's how you could have traded gold. That's how you could have traded gold for the week. So basically, it's just that simple. You just want to look out for whatever thing is the order flow. If we were using today, where's that? Let's look for the daily, and let's add our value line. Let's make this 23. All right. So you still see even on using today, gold is still bearish. On the dollar just turned bearish. So the dollar was a bit late responding with regards to the value line. If we go to EU, again, just turned bullish. So you could choose whichever one you want to use. So almost all the USD pairs right now, I think it's only UJ that is still that USD is still strong. So JPY is really the weakest right now in the market.
Bitcoin gave us Bitcoin was a late comer, so the buy just happened. Those who trade crypto, you should be smiling.
Okay.
It was a late buyer.
Let's quickly look at that symbols, cryptos, Bitcoin. All right, so if we look at this is the daily BTC. Okay, so we are using our normal flow method.
You are still bearish your normal flow method.
Yes, TJ2 is still bearish. So if we go to H4, if we are doing this on H4 and we look at BTC, BTC has just turned BTC just basically turned bullish now. So if you are trading the daily, BTC is virtually getting close to this point. So will you break it and stay above? Because on BTC we've actually been getting a lot of fake outs recently. There was this break
with what is happening with SEC, you should expect
SEC issue. So it had this break above at this point, thought it was going to change bullish, and then it was just basically fake outs. They turned bearish again, and every push up will look for opportunities to sell. So let's see whether they're able to break out of this zone and we've had another accumulation here. So hopefully this is not a distribution. And we
should come to 10,000, I beg. We need them at 10,000. Some people will cry, but it is well. Somebody must win in this market.
So the only good news is that on the weekly is actually bullish. Actually bullish on the weekly. So hopefully we've seen the correction. The correction is done, and we should start seeing another leg up. In fact, they needed to step in, because if they didn't step in at this point, if they didn't step in this week, we would have actually turned bearish on the weekly. So hopefully long-term buyers are stepping in, and hopefully we get a rally to the upside. So I think that's
just a reaction to USD. Bitcoin was not reacting to the USD strength.
Yeah, USD is currently very weak, and that was because of I don't know if you've listened to that to the ECB press conference yesterday.
No, I've not. Although I read your excerpt.
I came like after our meeting in the afternoon, I basically came back in the evening and listened to it. The woman was, the Powell is usually cautious when he's talking, and he will say, "What advise politicians?" This woman was threatening everybody. Said if politicians do not set the right monetary policy, let them be assured that the ECB remains prepared to continue giving a tougher
Increasing.
to continue to make it so that if they don't want tougher monetary policy, that they should do the right policies. Said that businesses, that if the rate of wages don't start coming down and it continues to cause inflation, that they will keep hiking until business people realize that they are serious.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
it's like, see, we are not playing. You people, inflation must come down no matter what happens. So I think that was just the response we got. That was basically what just happened to EU yesterday, and you just went to the moon
Right.
and all. So I think that's that about at least the trades.
All right. Thanks,
for the-
Prof. Let me quickly show. We will look at, so that it won't look like I want to show. I was thinking you show the images too. Some people just feel we like coming to talk.
Okay.
Someone like you, I know your phones are even on silent when you are trading. So some people can trade when they are talking to people. Me, I can't do that.
As in, my phone is almost always on silent. Almost always on silent.
This morning I was watching. I was preparing R&B for my children to take to school, and then this morning I was looking at the chart. It was the aroma of the burnt beans that reminded me that guy. So right. So this is Prof's MT4. This was the Euro USD trade was referring to. Just so you guys know, it's not an afterthought. I think this should be Daniel, right? Yeah, this is Daniel. Daniel too.
Yeah, this is Daniel. So
One of his strategies too.
Daniel that does 1:10.
He needs to come and pay tithe. All those things.
Yeah, I think this was.
Yeah, I think this is GU by Daniel too.
Yeah.
Okay, the earlier one was the EG. Right. So the last thing we'll look at before we move on, that same week, we looked at weekly trade method. So Prof has explained weekly trade, his method. We looked at weekly trade, my method. Let's go to the template. Yeah. So this was the template for that weekly trade. And what did we say we are doing here? We said you could use H4, we could use daily, whichever one you want to adopt, no problem. For the sake of time, let's use daily. So on the daily, this is bearish, right? So you'll be looking for reasons to want to sell, so that it doesn't look like it's all uhuru. If you are traded that, what could have happened? So you came on Monday, it took out Friday's high based on that model. You'd have initiated a sell somewhere around here, and maybe TP3. And then here again, you had another high of the week, but price didn't close below the highest bullish candle, so you are not in that trade. You had another high of the week. So let me expand so you can see. The highest. Again, you didn't get an entry for your trade at all. You had another high of the week, this here. Right? So this is how this would have played if you use the daily time frame. So all of the wins from some other strategies would have been like losses for you or near misses for you. I think Said was saying that in the fostering group. So if your strategy is not doing well in a particular week, there are some strategies that will do well in a particular week, and your own is not doing well, you leave your own and go and marry that strategy, the new strategy. then that second week, that new strategy may not do so well, and yours will do well, but you're not there to enjoy it because you've jumped ship. Understand your strategy and move with it. Right, so we have Euro USD here on the daily. We're using daily time frame. Wait, I think something is wrong here. Yeah, so daily time frame we're still bearish too. Great. So on Euro USD, you would have gone to like 30 minutes. We're using that methodology. So you would have had your Monday here, and then you had a trade, and the price went against you. Of course, you would have hit your TPs there. This would have been a losing trade, obviously. This would be outside your kill zone, and then you practically not have any other trade until this evening, which I don't expect you should be thinking of entering a trade late Friday. Right, so that should have given like a TP2. Now notice, if you use that method, you would have missed out on all of these buys. Well, let me not say miss out. You won't be in the buy because it doesn't meet your strategy. That's not like missing out. Another day, somebody else will miss out. That's just the way this market is. If you go to H4, H4 would have told you that you were bullish, right? Up from here. So if you're one of those who trade H4, you'd have been bullish from this time. On that same EU, where somebody else is looking for sell. Then if you go to 30 minutes on that same day, and using weekly trades where you're looking for high low of the week in this case now. So this is 1st of June. So this week would have been buys. You go to 30 minutes for this week. You would have been looking for buys. So this is Friday low. Price didn't take out Friday low. So there would have been no reason. Well, price on Monday, price took out Friday's low. Quite all right. On Monday, price took out Friday's low. Where are we? Yeah, this is Friday's low. Price took out Friday's low. So you would have had your setup like this. So price came, picked you up, went to TP2, played back, and eventually hit your TP. If you held, fine and good. So that's for EU. Notice all that changed was just the time frame. The same thing would have happened in GU and NU and everything. So I think I'll pause recording here, give room for 1 or 2 questions.